A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Priya Shramankar, and it gives me immense pleasure to say this that I will be your host for this session. Just a heads up, we are live with the audience. So, firstly, I would like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you to the third edition of the world's largest FinTech Fest, the Global FinTech Fest, organized by the National Payments Corporation of India, the Payments Council of India, and the Fintech Convergence Council. This edition of the fest is supported by the Department of Economic Affairs, RBI, and IFSCA. Along with that, I would also like to thank our partners who have supported us in this edition. I would like to thank our theme partner, WhatsApp, co-powered by Amazon Pay, spend management partner Encash, in association with Perfuse, payments partner Cash Free Payments, and CEO's dinner partner HSBC. Along with that, I would also like to thank our partners, our country partner UK FCO and Kingdom of Netherlands. I would also like to thank our credit score partner Pesa Bazaar, conversational commerce partner Carix, P2P lending partner Faircent, VIP Lounge Cred, and InsurTech partner Cover Genius. Well, the speeches and discussions will cover a range of initiatives and intervention at the Global FinTech Fest 2022. And having said that, we will start with the first topic of discussion, that is the FinTech Landscape Canada. We're glad to have our esteemed speakers line up for the same. Having said that, I would like to welcome the Consul General of Canada in Mumbai, Ms. Diedrah Kelly, the CEO and founder, Asset Direct, Mr. Adam Rice. I would also like to welcome the Canada Consulate, Keith Can. Also, I would like to welcome Jen Arp and Elena D'Souza. Having said that, just a note that we would be having few questions coming in that you all can post in your chat window for our speakers. If you'll have any at the end of the discussion, we will take those questions and post the same to discuss with our speakers. And having said that, I would like to please join in welcoming Ms. Diedrah Kelly, who will take over from here. Thank you. This is Anchor Priya Shramankar.
Well, good morning, and thank you for that very warm welcome. It is great to see you online for the virtual session on the FinTech landscape in Canada. As you mentioned, my name is Diedrah Kelly, and I am the Consul General at the Canadian Consulate here in Mumbai. For those who don't know, the Consulate has a specialized team of trade professionals with the mandate to expand business between Canada and India. And events like the one today is an example of how the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service can connect you with market updates and to facilitate company introductions. The Canadian Trade Commissioner Service in India has 8 locations to serve you, including the consulate in Mumbai. So if you have not already done so, please do reach out to us. And with that, I would like to give a special shout out to Ms. Elaine D'Souza, who is the Trade Commissioner responsible for high tech and investments at the consulate, who has been instrumental in putting this together today. I would also like to thank the Fintech Council of India for collaborating with Canada to organize this virtual session. You may not know that IT is Canada's fastest growing sector and that Canada is home to the second largest financial center in North America. You may also be unaware that FinTech is supported by Canada's strength in AI and blockchain ecosystems that includes research and startups. Among Canada's 995 FinTech companies, 81% of them have their headquarters in Canada, and almost 85% of those are startups. Canada's excellent post-secondary institutions play an integral part to the sector's success. Canada, as you probably know, is recognized as a global leader in financial technology, in large part because of our ability to bring together world-class innovation technology, and finance. And here are just a few examples. The innovation ecosystem in Toronto is supported by the region being the second largest financial center and having the highest concentration of financial services employment in all of North America. Recent amendments to Canada's Bank Act are resulting in even greater collaboration between Canadian banks and fintech companies. 6 banks in Canada are among the top 10 safest banks in North America. Over 23% of Canadian fintech companies operate in the paytech space. Companies involved in the insurance tech, lendtech, wealth tech, regtech, and insurtech subsectors reflect 46% of Canada's fintech companies. And fintech in Canada has been seeing tremendous growth in recent years and is expected to continue expanding exponentially. Fintech investment in Canada soared to over $6 billion in 2021 with 162 deals, both record highs for deal value and deal count. And I'd like to highlight 3 reasons that foreign companies like to invest in Canadian fintech. 1, the skilled workforce availability. 2, the lower cost of operating. And 3, proximity to markets and customers, made possible thanks to the 15 trade agreements that Canada has with 51 countries that are already signed and in effect. Today's virtual session will address the following topics: current fintech ecosystem in Canada, the regulatory and policy support offered to fintechs in Canada, and opportunities for Indian fintechs in Canada. I hope that the virtual session is a great learning opportunity for everyone. Again, if you would like more information, please do not hesitate to reach out to my team, who would be able to answer your very specific questions and introduce you to some Canadian players. But now I have the pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker from Canada, Mr. Adam Rice, who is the CEO and founder of Asset Direct. Over the last 18 years, he has scaled online marketplaces around the world across a broad spectrum of industries, from consumer products to real estate and now financial services. Adam's experience is in online marketplaces, startups, and advertising, which gave him the wherewithal to launch Asset Direct and scale the business to where it is today with less than an initial investment of $600,000. So Adam, with that, the floor is yours, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thanks so much, Deirdre. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, and really appreciate the insights you were able to share about Canada. Definitely a lot of very exciting opportunity in our country. I'm really, really proud of what we've been able to achieve in Canada in the fintech ecosystem. It's just crazy when you think that it's a country of only 38 million people. So first and foremost, welcome to our presentation featuring an overview of fintech in Canada. During this presentation, we're going to talk to you about the state of fintech in Canada, including some of the market dynamics and the evolving regulatory environment. We'll also chat a little bit about opportunities that may exist for Indian fintechs coming into the country. To preface our discussion, I'd like to posit that although Canada has, I think we're 38.5 million people now, which is a fraction of the population here in India, there are actually some outstanding opportunities for fintech as the market is mature and nearly everyone is banked. And subsequently, in being banked, they are rebankable. There's also a lot of wealth and significant middle class in the country, so don't discount us. There's an absolutely massive opportunity to come into our country and launch a very valuable fintech brand. So I am not just on my own here today. I'm here with a very good friend, an associate, an investor in our business, and an accelerator in Canada that works to help fintech from around the world enter the country and Canadian fintechs to get into other countries around the world. But introing myself first, I'm founder and CEO of Asset Direct. We're a world-leading financial product marketplace with offices in Canada, as well as Mumbai and Delhi here in India. Asset Direct connects underbanked from around the world with a global marketplace of financial products and services, allowing them choice and options, really regardless of their socioeconomic status. So there's absolutely a big opportunity here in India, as we seek to bank the underbanked here in this country, especially folks in tier 2 and tier 3 cities where access to financial services is limited, where folks like RBI and others are really trying to help these folks. We're in those areas as well, trying to help and allow these people access to financial products and services. So in India, we connect these people to financial products through a network of agents in about 160 different cities, including thousands of Kirana stores. So these Kirana shops refer traffic into our infrastructure. We then connect them with financial product providers in India, from India, be they banks or fintechs. And as those financial products are sold, a commission is generated that we then share with the Kirana shop or the corner store. And the idea is that as the corner store refers more traffic into our infrastructure, we revenue share on more products sold, helping the corner store build a business while helping their local community access financial products that would be difficult to get from the bank down the road. Anyways, that's intro from me. I will hand it over now to Jan Arp. Thanks, Jan. Oh, Jan, you might be muted.
I think Jen is on mute because I can't hear him.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
We
me?
have.
Yes, that looks good now.
Perfect. I switched up my great microphone that I paid for that doesn't seem to work very well. So I went back to the Mac here. So glad you can hear me. Apologies for that. Jan, I am the founding managing partner of the Holt Exchange. We are a global early stage fintech fund platform. We have quickly grown to have now 39 portfolio companies with who we've invested in, and very fortunate to have invested in the early days in Asset Direct as part of our inaugural cohort that we kicked off with. We have quickly built out an advisor base of about 600 advisors. In doing so, what we profile them, leveraging a data science approach. It's actually some of the best and fun things about Canada, access to data science and R&D credits to help us profile them. But on the other side, we actually track about 10,000 fintechs with that same team. And we essentially try to identify, rank, and find those that will be the best fit with those 600 advisors. And those advisors represent financial institutions, investors, and other experts, but always those who care about early stage fintech. And so we're certainly very bullish on finding and establishing partnerships in India, Asset Direct being one of our portfolio companies. We have another also exploring in the region, and we continue to seek out great companies that could potentially expand into Canada. And we would be, for those that are pre-Series A, be very interested to see if we could provide those initial checks and help them establish into Canada. So that's a bit about us.
Thanks so much, Jan, for the introduction. Now let's jump into an overview of Canada and the financial institutions. So, Canada has over 1,000 financial institutions, and there's a lot of growth in a number of verticals here with the new fintechs that have been entering the market over the course of the last 5 years. So we actually have over 85 banks, so 29 domestic, 24 subsidiaries of foreign banks, and 28 branches of foreign banks, also 4 government-owned banks. We have over 500 lending institutions, 355 of those are credit unions. There are 4 lending-only institutions and 70 non-bank mortgage lenders, and a presence of over 50 digital personal lenders that are established, with new lenders coming on each and every month. There are also over 111 insurance companies, 64 life insurance companies, 47 property and casualty insurance companies, and 375 mutual fund institutions with over 100 mutual fund companies, 95 mutual fund dealers, and 180 security dealers. So there's a very mature market in financial services in the country. And I think Deirdre really positioned it well in speaking about our financial institutions, including the security of those institutions and the trust that we have in them in Canada, and the trust for them really across the world. So although we do have a diverse ecosystem, a significant challenge is that there are really only 5 major banks that house bank accounts for over 85% of the population. This is a challenge and an opportunity. In one way, these big banks are adverse to change, as it's extremely expensive for these guys and time-consuming to change. So the path to open banking has been fraught with challenges. So in fact, today, all the big five banks require you to visit a branch to verify your ID to open a bank account with them. And unlike India and Canada, there's no standardized digital ID authentication. This is actually a big opportunity. Although it poses a significant challenge for existing fintechs, those who want to come into the country, open banking is occurring now, allowing you to enter a country and potentially access significant traffic and access to significant consumers through the fintech that you have. So over the next 5 years, we're going to see a very accelerating pace in terms of open banking, but you have not missed the boat if you are interested in coming into our country and have a product that's focused on open banking. Also beyond that, on digital ID verification, KYC, AML, etc. I think the opportunity is still right for you to come in.
And maybe just on that note and elaborating, Canada is obviously very well known. If you did a quick search, there's the top 5 banks. However, there is a bit of a shifting landscape that we're starting to see here. So while it can be considered very much an oligopoly network, we're starting to see some new pressures and increased competition into the marketplace that we're starting to see. So Adam also mentioned the regional banks. I want to give an example. There's a National Bank of Canada, actually based more on the Montreal and supporting more on the Quebec side and across Canada as well and other markets. But it's done a fantastic job. If you look at it from an asset size, it's smaller. However, through its investment arm, they have a VC fund. It is increasingly looking to strategically invest into some companies, and doing so, look for those that they can invest, get equity stakes, but also be able to adopt that technology internally. It has had a tremendous success. One of the most recent announcements was that of Flinks, for which they just recently acquired. So that regional play is increasingly becoming more common theme. Now, I did put in a little note, Equitable Bank. Most recently, there was big news. Equitable Bank was a very bullish entity in terms of its ability to partner with fintechs. It has taken a very digital-first strategy. It has also most recently been in the news for the acquiring of Concentra, who had just rebranded to Wisp at the time. These will go very well together because both players are very hungry to actually work with different fintechs. And all of a sudden, a new bank sort of emerge and puts them about 6th or 7th on the list there. So we're seeing more players really start to come in. It makes it very exciting. But it doesn't stop there. There's a lot of other banks who are actually, or those with banking licenses, who have not fully utilized them. And we're starting to see a shift and an interest to be able to capitalize on the market. And one of that being Duo Bank actually just recently acquired a massive lender in Fairstone. So Fairstone was a big partner with us through many of the years, and I actually thought it was worthwhile to maybe do a little bit of case study so it's better understood. Like, what do we mean by these sort of partnerships? Maybe Adam, you can flip to slide 5 there, and I'll just kind of quickly go through. So Fairstone Bank, yeah, they've given examples of how they think about things. Every year, this is actually a bank was with an ex-Citi group that then kind of spun off of several years back and then became Fairstone. So what's very interesting about them is every single year they look for different fintechs, financial technology that they can adopt internally, utilize to the best that they can. So I'll run through 2 and we'll leave it to LoanConnect to explain the third. But for instance, they wanted to review the KYC AML process and how to underwrite that a bit better. So we had previously invested as well in the 2018 year in a company called Owl. So this was the ability to, with just your name alone, get up to 70 data points. And so they leveraged and had a partnership for numerous years. It's a good PR piece around it too, to better build out their systems. And so through time, eventually, they actually stopped working together as Owl actually better refocused on the insurance industry. However, just shows you their eagerness and willingness to do so, because they went in there also with a willingness to learn and adopt new technologies with it. Relativity 6 is a great example of how to industry codes and better underwrite the individuals and the industries where they're coming from. And so they're able to leverage that technology and have better AI systems into what they're using. So they're very bullish in terms of how they view technology and look to work with different companies to do that. I'll flip it to LoanConnect, Adam. I think you're better suited to tell the story there.
Perfect. Yeah, just to rewind here for a second, fintechs looking to enter a country, the big 5 banks here at the top are very open to connecting with fintechs, having discussions. They all have fintech branches inside the bank, or arms that actually represent fintech integration and are there to be able to chat with you. Like the banks here in India, it does take some time to be able to work through kind of partnerships, but there's definitely opportunity there, and there are partnership teams that are part of meeting with fintechs and looking to integrate them within the bank. Beyond that, these other smaller financial institutions, I think like India, they have a little more agility to be able to partner earlier. So if you're looking to, plug in and maybe get a proof of concept out, I would recommend maybe getting a hold of some of these smaller guys, Equitable Bank being one of them, National Bank of Canada as well, again, being open. Beyond that, there's a massive number of credit unions across the country that are also open to reviewing fintech opportunities. So definitely some significant opportunity across the board here. For us, Fairstone Bank, another bank in Canada, we refer traffic to them. So like I said, we've created a massive global marketplace of financial products that has localized product providers in each country that we work with. So in India, we have Indian product providers. We work with Indian NBFCs, Indian fintechs, and we're in the process of plugging into some Indian banks. In Canada, again, we're working with Canadian banks and financial institutions that we refer traffic to. And one of our sub-brands, LoanConnect, drives personal loan traffic across to, I think, somewhere over 75 different financial institutions. So essentially, partners or people that work for us, agents that drive traffic to us, anybody that refers traffic in, we take it into our infrastructure, we optimize that traffic, and then we send it to the most appropriate financial product provider. That product provider generates a commission when a loan gets sold, and then we revenue share that commission with the referral source. Something that's different about us is we don't do any advertising. We've not done any advertising in the last 5 years. Really, our business is built on partnerships and agents that drive traffic to the infrastructure. So like I said, in India, we're working with Kirana shops. In Canada, we have a network of independent agents. We also have a network of online platforms that refer traffic in. So these platforms refer traffic into us, and then we forward that traffic into banks like Fairstone. And folks at Fairstone are happy because they're getting qualified leads. Our commitment to these guys is, but by the time the traffic gets to them, there's an 80% chance of conversion. So we've done enough analysis of that lead before we sent it to them that there's a high chance that will convert with the financial product provider we're referring to. So it makes it actually really convenient for these guys. I think, similar here as in Canada, it's expensive to acquire quality leads. You could be marketing on Google or Facebook, spending a bunch of money and not getting the right candidates. So what we promise to our product providers is that you will be getting the right candidates for us, and you will only be paying us per funded product, creating a very predictable acquisition channel for them to acquire new customers at an affordable cost. But Fairstone's been a great partner, and again, through Jan and through the Holt Accelerator and his team, we've been able to plug into these guys. So would recommend Jan as I plug him yet again as a good person to kind of connect with and looking to come into the country. Cool. So let's look at the regulatory environment. And I would say, what's going on in Canada is similar to what's going on in India and similar to what's going on in the rest of the world. Fintech is outpacing the regulators' ability to regulate. So regulation comes in afterwards. So in Canada, there's a bit of a decentralized regulatory framework. So for fintechs and FIs, you could have to report to over 30 different regulators. And there's provincial sandboxes in each province that you would then work with the local regulator to understand whether your product is something that is going to work in our country under our regulatory environment. So you can voluntarily come into a sandbox where you will show them your tech and you'll work with them, and then they'll work with you to create something that is going to endure. So beyond this, as in India, there's little regulation for fintechs in some industries, such as personal lending. I know RBI here in Canada or in India has been focused on trying to regulate a number of things over the last 12 to 18 months. I think we'll be seeing some regulation coming across the board here. So again, for example, Asset Direct allows access to personal lenders across the country. And as there's no national body that regulates this industry, lenders might require licenses in some provinces and none in others. So depending on where you're servicing the customer, you may be regulated in that province. So like you, I'm sure, we've been told that more centralized regulation is coming and fintechs building businesses in unregulated areas must be careful with their business practices, right? We expect the same situation in Canada that is going on right now with RBI in India. Regulation will come and extinguish business models that don't operate in the best interest of the customer, as well as operating within the framework of what the regulator wants to see within industry. So the recommendation that I received coming into India is the same that I will share with you, is that if you are unregulated, you need to stay close to the regulators and adapt your business model to stay on the right side of things. This is why provincial sandboxes have been created in local jurisdictions. Don't let funding cloud your view. If you're on the wrong side of things, the business model will not sustain. And I think we're seeing that happening here in India as well. Jen.
Yeah, and just a note on the regulators as well. So you kind of have to give yourself the quick test there, or sniff test. Or I mean, are you a tech provider providing solutions to the financial service providers who then in turn provide it to the consumer? Or are you providing a financial product directly to the consumers in this case, and therefore you will be more likely subject to regulations? Okay, so that doesn't mean, take that and go ahead and move in that direction. It just means that to be very careful as you go forward. There are things, while it does look somewhat disjointed in some ways, things that would pass in one jurisdiction and a regulatory body would necessarily pass in another jurisdiction as well. So there can be fast track to move in. The regulatory bodies are certainly communicating, so it can make it a little bit easier, and you can certainly establish yourself to be able to do that across. Another thing that's actually interesting about Canada is that they're part of the Global Financial Innovation Network. And so that's a global network of 70 now organizations across the world. And so if you were to actually get in a sandbox in another jurisdiction, you're able to actually potentially more streamline it. I don't want to say it's an immediate, passport, but accelerate into the other sandbox of the jurisdictions in Canada that you're looking to enter into. So good bonus there as well. But if we're flipping over, I did want to give an example, and an example which comes with its challenges, but that as well as with opportunities. And so if we look at this from an open banking standpoint, a huge movement, and I think it's clearly shown here, India has certainly been leading the pack in the charge around the way that payments and identity is all handled here. Canada right now has been a little bit behind this. So there's been a lot of talks and a lot of conversations over a couple of years now. And they've only more recently sort of kind of picked the head who should champion this, an individual, and under what department, the Department of Finance. So there's more work to be done there, and I think it's only going to start with more read access first before there's the ability to do more from there. There's certainly, Canada's a place that seems sometimes gets kind of stuck between a European approach in terms of having regulation sort of push forward a competitive marketplace, but then looks at the US and says, well, the competitive marketplace is inherently comes through natural forces. And so it kind of is in between and kind of studying both markets to kind of see where it's going to land here. But with that is a fantastic opportunity, and the opportunity being for those companies that have been building on those existing frameworks and understand it, when it does deploy into Canada, which it will happen, there'll be a fantastic opportunity to deploy into those existing rails and be able to take advantage and bring those learnings into Canada in this particular case. So I think that's an interesting story, and because obviously open banking is so huge and paramount, I figured I had to always a fintech panel, might as well touch on it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So fintech unicorns that have emerged in the last 3 years. It's a bit of a evolving scenario right now in the market, but I've chose to leave a few of these people here that might have lost a bit of their market cap, strictly because it's happened really globally. But some of the biggest guys, as you would know here in India, Shopify is just massive. Lightspeed is a payments and POS company, so digitizing payments and working with POS terminals. Paystone does the same thing. Again, these are billion-dollar payments companies in a country of 38.5 million people, right? So you have a real opportunity to build something of significant value. Vis-a-vis on this side, in India, you need much more people on the other side, or you need to at least have a plan to access much more people. Secure ID verification, AML, KYC. As I mentioned, there's challenges in banks, but there are providers that are working on these problems. Secure Key is actually invested in by a number of the biggest banks in Canada, and they are working on digital ID verify, KYC, AML. Verifin is doing something similar. Neo Financial is one of the largest neobanks in our country. They have 1 million users, and they recently reached $1 billion valuation. Again, focused on the Canadian population. So definitely, like I said, there's definitely some massive potential to grow your startup. And then the other guys that are bigger, Wealthsimple. So, Wealthsimple is an investment trading company helping you manage your investments. And really, I think the name says it all. It's about making the investments simple, straightforward, allowing you to access, traditional types of investments as well as stock investments, even crypto, but really meant for the average Joe. So anybody could come in and make investing easy. Dan.
Thank you for that. And it's very exciting. I can tell you actually, like 3 years ago, we were asking ourselves, when's the next, will Canada even have a unicorn? Because we were kind of the word at that time. And very quickly, things changed. For those that knew, saw a lot of this stuff that was coming. So it was a very exciting time. But it's an important distinction here is because the market is sufficient when you're coast to coast across Canada to build a unicorn, so a large enough market, and of course with great trade partners like those on the call to be able to expand therefore afterwards. So shifting forward here, maybe you're wondering about the ecosystem, and I think this is more really purely speaking to the financing side of things. So if you're curious about if you're the startups on the call right now or others looking to participate or co-invest, etc., there's this different buckets of opportunities that you have to consider. So we certainly touched on a little bit the corporate venture arms, and that's already kind of gave the example with National Bank. But you can every bank is going to have a venture capital arm, and some are going to be a little bit more strategic. So you have to really understand when you're speaking to them, meaning, do you need to see if your product itself can actually be sold and piloted and implemented into that organization versus others are doing it more from a return perspective. But there is a large gambit, and it goes beyond just the companies that are financial services companies. Would be ones that you might not expect as well. I'll give you an example, like a Canadian Tire, which is a retail company as well, which also has a banking license because it has a bit of a loyalty program through their Canadian Tire dollars that they have. So things to consider from that nature. If we look over at the types of funds that are available, there's certainly some dedicated funds, and you have a full range, a full ecosystem at this point. So those specifically dedicated to fintech. So from seed all the way to IPO essentially right now. And you have a suite of generalist funds as well. Of course, we play in that mix. So there's a great number of players that we can co-invest with, and we have for many of our portfolio companies. We find to be very sharing on the cap table, which means you get access to a greater network in many cases. There's some massive pension companies in Canada. This is very well known. So the amount of assets that they hold and under management is a great opportunity as well. And they look to make direct investments into internationally, obviously to diversify what they're doing and directly into good companies. Now, it's one thing to consider, I would say, is some of these pension companies may also have a strategic focus that is good for their interests, their special interests. And so some of them may be very provincially focused, and therefore they're sort of expecting you to establish and create jobs within that particular province that is mentioned. So you might want to be thinking through that, and if it all sort of lines up well, you can do that as well. Same thing with the other actually jumping back to the funds in this case. Many of them may have a sort of North American focused, so you're better off to ensure that you do establish yourselves into Canada, and many of them are looking to deliver the bulk of it into Canadian-based companies. However, if you were to establish even a subsidiary office, that obviously increases substantially the pool of capital that's available to you. And lastly, I'd say it's just the angel and family, the FOIs, it's the family office networks that are available there. So there's over 10,000 accredited investors that are available to support and increasing sophistication that's there. I think there's been some great work at NACO, that's a national angel community, to further educate so that you get value-added investors on there and to better support you. And you have hundreds of family offices. We're backed by a 5th-generation family office to actually provide some context, the Holden Group. And so they're increasingly look to be direct into these companies and leverage their network to further support or even utilize that technology internally for their own ambitions of things that they're building in their global platforms, but also just several dozens of angel groups to actually help facilitate and streamline that whole process. So a lot of financing available.
Jen, just a quick question. How do you normally coordinate with foreign companies that you're investing in, coming into Canada? Are they creating Canadian subs, or what's the typical process that you guys follow?
So, I'll just speak for what we do. Doesn't mean everyone is under this nature of this guise. So we will be looking to first and foremost assess a fit with those portfolio companies. And so we have 600 advisors now. They're predominantly Canadian. So 65-ish% are Canadian, another 20-ish% or more is US, and the rest is international. So we were able to get these ties to support companies in, but help them kind of get out as well. So in doing that, before we invest, it'll go through numerous stages of review, and they'll review up to 100 of our advisors. At that point, if we have a good, what we feel, network effect with those, we actually collect the feedback. So before we invest, 100 advisors feedback, predominantly a big portion Canadian, we're able to decide if we can, facilitate deals on the other side. So we kind of stick our necks out and say, hey, like, we're going to invest, we're going to see if we can facilitate it. We will not pressure companies into establish. If like our goal is to help find customers and investors, and they have their requirements. And in many cases, it just makes sense when you're starting, obviously, as you're doing international business, and the time zones and boots on the ground make a huge difference on the ability to further the relationships there and better build the network. So we can help them. And especially for Canadians, there's to enter into new companies, to become Canadian-based companies, there's a fast track program that's available as well to expedite the whole process there as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jan. And just being aware of time here, I think we might be running up against it. So I'm just trying to go through a few of these things a little quicker here at the end. I think the other big piece here is there's a very strong ecosystem that can support your startup as you come into country. And that ecosystem, includes folks like Holt Exchange, and Jan's people. Also, big support through university startup accelerators, many of them having significant funding from the university as well as external funding. And, in some of these accelerators, you actually do not need to be a student at that university or have gone through that university. So for me, DMZ was an accelerator that we did in Toronto out of Ryerson University. And in fact, DMZ was the accelerator that brought us here into India about 2.5 years to kind of trial and check the market. So again, very, very helpful in our internationalization, as well as really helping us refine our business model here in this country as well as in Canada. You'll also find a lot of support from the government. Folks on this call, Trade Commissioner Service, these guys are really, really helpful in kind of connecting you into the ecosystem. So I would stress, try to use the local allies you have here on the ground in Mumbai. Folks on this call, I'm sure would be very happy to kind of assist. I am also happy to assist if you have any questions after this is over. There are also corporate-run fintech accelerators. Highline Beta is just ran an accelerator for Intuit, basically allowing people to build and kind of scale a business model to plug you into one of these organizations that they're running accelerators for. There's constant iteration of accelerators that are going through. Definitely a lot of opportunity. The last piece I would say is here Mars, which is kind of a local innovation hub in Toronto that is very focused on fintech. They do have a fintech group that they would be happy to connect with you as you're looking to enter country. They have a really, really well-defined ecosystem and a good network of advisors similar to what Jan offers. They're not on the investment side, but they're very much connected in helping you get into our ecosystem. Sorry, Jan, we've got a few more minutes here, but I'll just kind of click on to the next.
Yeah, sure. I think this is an important slide. I think this is a great opportunity here, and this is what I wanted to kind of speak on is, Canadian money or establishing in Canada can go substantially further. So you can get 3x or the benefit. And I know this because I used to help several companies. In fact, one, we kind of went to the US through Y Combinator, for those that are aware. They looked at our sheets and said, wow, you guys are like triple the size that we would be expecting for the amount of staff that you have here. How is this even possible? They actually threw up a flag like, what's going on here? It's all kosher. It's all well done. It's just that we're incredibly efficient with the dollars that we have. And so what we do see is that you can get upwards of 80% subsidies for the work that you do here. So these are government grants that you're provided for your tech shops that you are here. So it varies how much you can potentially get, but you can work with different parties to do it. The exchange rate is obviously incredibly favorable right now and continues to be relative to the US. So if you're looking to establish in the North America, we say, hey, take a look up in the Canada front. And lastly is just the cost of talent. We're talking 50% cheaper of this type of talent here, and some just really world-class universities to show that they're very capable and very educated, so be able to do the work at hand. So substantially a great opportunity for those who are looking to establish.
Cool. So at this point, just a quick review of who Asset Direct is, and then Jan will give you, I guess, a final review of who he is. We're creating the future of banking, or working to create the future of banking, which is a fully personalized product platform. So banking is a platform. You log in, you access your bank account, and a universe of products around the periphery from multiple providers. And in local jurisdictions, we plug into a local FI as the central bank account holders. So we do not become a bank. We don't go through any of that. We partner with local banks. They hold the centralized deposit and checking accounts. And then we build the universe of products through our APIs into hundreds of financial institutions, allowing the customers that are coming into that account access to products from fintechs as well as FIs, NBFCs, etc. So would be very interested in partnering with anybody here in India that is offering these types of products and services. Always on the lookout. On the other end, if you're looking to come into our country and you are offering these things, we could also help you establish yourself. The other layer of this is that it's really multi-layer. So on one level, we have the centralized everyday checking account. On the next level, we have financial products and services. And then this becomes larger and larger. Based on the data that our partner gets out of the account, we're able to cross-promote other products and services that might matter to that customer. And we essentially see this as one central login, like it could be your landing page. As you open your internet browser, you log in and you open up your universe of products that are meant to fit you. You shop and you find things that are a fit, and the system learns your behavior and better recommends or predicts other products and services that might be a fit. That's happening both here and in India. So as I said, if you're looking to partner or just have a chat, absolutely available and willing to do that.
Awesome. And maybe I'll just real quick, I think I've covered some of these points here, but the key takeaway for us is if you're a early stage fintech on the call, we're certainly looking to potentially get to know you and see how we can support you. We've made over 39 investments, and so we'll see if we can make that number 40 with you. We've facilitated over 100 deals between our portfolio company and our advisors. So I think that's kind of a bit of the secret sauce of the platform here. And then it has resulted in our portfolio companies now raising over $120 million. So we've had over 40 institutional investors, tier one firms invest in multiple of our portfolio companies. So certainly seems to be working. And the other side to that is, if you're we're always looking for great advisors. So if you want access to really network among some great premium advisors who are also excited by the early stage fintech world, so would love for you to get in touch. We're always looking for those that might be interested to co-invest alongside of us, or look to adopt these startups or to even work with them. So always looking for on the other side some smart advisors who care about the early stage fintech space.
Great, guys. Thank you so much for attending the presentation today. Thanks, Jan. It was great. And yeah, looking forward to opening up for questions.
Thank you to all our speakers for this informative and a wonderful presentation and discussion. Like stated below, we have a few questions that I've posted in the chat window. The first question is to Mr. Adam Rice. What challenges are the banks facing in Canada? Can you elaborate on the same?
Yeah, sure. So, Canadian banks are very, very well established. Like I mentioned, the top 5 banks hold over 85% of the population's accounts. And I think, like was said by Deirdre, they're very, very secure. There's a lot of trust and kind of faith in our financial institutions, which I think is a bit of a difference between our couple of countries, right? I think we're having a lot more stuff happen here in India that's positive on that light, but there's a journey for some Indians to hit that. In Canada, there's no loss of faith. We place all faith in the banks. Now, I think one of the biggest issues for them is essentially the ability to iterate and innovate. These are large institutions that have very significant layers of people working at multiple levels, and so getting change is difficult. We find ourselves having many meetings with banks, and it takes many meetings with banks and many meetings with different people at banks in order to kind of make progress. I think they're getting better and more efficient in launching these fintech teams. But even if you go in through a fintech team, it's going to take a few meetings to get into the right group, and that's going to take some time. I think many of the core banking systems in Canada are still based on very old technology, secure technology, but old technology, banking infrastructure. I don't know if you know this type of coding language, but it's definitely something before my time, or in the 80s and 70s, which is COBOL. So many of the core banking things are built on a COBOL backend, and making changes to that is very, very expensive. So it is a journey getting a bank on board, both in the time it takes to get the right conversations with the right people, but also in the cost for that bank to make changes in order to be able to plug into your technological infrastructure. So I think definitely, big problems really exist in the agility and ability to iterate in tech. And this is why we see people coming in with neobanks and trying to compete. That said, these banks are very well established and very powerful. And like I said, a lot of trust for them. So they've made it, I think, a little bit more difficult than some neobanks would have thought in terms of poaching customers. And they are digitizing, although it's taking time, they're doing it. So it's definitely a journey. I will say, the biggest bank in Canada, I've had, I think maybe 12 meetings with them, and things are just starting to come together. So be prepared that it's going to take time if you're willing to, if you want to work with one of the big 5. The other recommendation is, as I would say earlier, is that the smaller banks are more agile, more able to code, more able to plug in, not based on COBOL. So you might have a little more success with the smaller banks and plugging in and being able to kind of get traction early. I hope that answered the question. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Yes, I think definitely that answers that question. We have another question come up, and that's for Jen. The question says, I've also put it in the chat window, what steps India can take to start early?
To start early in the expansion into the Canadian market? I'm just trying to clarify the question.
Yes, that looks like.
Okay. If that's the case, I would say if you're looking to expand in the Canadian market, I mean, first is just researching that there is a good fit. There are lots of different fintech ecosystem maps available. I had built one previously with an organization called Fintech Cadence. So it's a fintech ecosystem mapping. It's a bit dated, but you can also certainly see how your technology and startup could position yourself relative to the existing companies that are out there on the other side. And so find that's online. There's a lot of news also around the financial institutions and who they've partnered with as well. There's even organizations that have provided this information. I think Fathom Foresights, or used to be Fintech Growth Syndicate, FGS. And so that might be some of the stuff more premium, but many times the financial institutions aren't shy to brag about these sort of partnerships. So you get a better sense of what is sort of the ones that are getting adopted at this point to be able to adjust from it. And thereafter, I'd say, Adam had pointed out real well, the strong ecosystem. There's many players that are available to potentially partner with, to work with, to be able to make that happen, including some of the individuals on the call as well. So you can reach out to the Canadian Consul to see how you can be able to make those introductions as well, or a lot of these incubators, and myself included, and see if there's with hypothesis after we've done the research coming to us and saying, hey, we're looking to explore in those particular areas. And more often than not, we're very willing to support and see if there's ways that we can help you in navigating that ecosystem.
Thank you, Jen, for the same. All right. So we don't have any other question after this. So before we close the session formally, I would like to keep the platform open to our speakers if they would want to say a few words before we formally close the session.
Yeah, I guess just quickly from my end, thank you for attending. I hope what we were able to provide you with was informative and enlightening and able to give you some insight about the opportunities in the Canadian market. It is an exceptional market, and there's a lot of opportunity that exists. And with the slow pace of open banking, I think there's some real opportunity for fintechs that are offering products in that sphere or looking to enter and participate in that area to still come in and really have some weight in the game vis-a-vis, here in India where things are far more developed. That said, I'm available. My email address is here. Happy to answer any questions you might have directly. Please do send me a message. And I'm not sure if Deirdre or Keith or anybody wanted to make a final statement.
Certainly, I can jump in and say a few words from the consulate. Well, first of all, thank you to the Global FinTech Fest for keeping Canada in mind for this session. It is very exciting to be part of your exciting, busy week. From the Trade Commissioner Services perspective, if any participant is interested in connecting with Adam and Jan and companies like that, please, again, do not hesitate to reach out to us. And we would be glad to facilitate introductions like this, as well as many other sectors that we cover. And on our program for fall, we have a very busy schedule in the area of energy storage, electric vehicles, water and recyclables, as well as infrastructure. So really, we look at the whole gamut of opportunities that exist for India and Canada. And a lot of these technologies that we're talking about today in the digitization realm are very apropos to the other companies that we're dealing with in other sectors. So see us as a resource. We're very glad to collaborate today with the fintech industry, but we are here to serve the greater needs of Mumbai. So thank you for including us today.
Thank you so much, Keith. All right, so I think with that, we come to an end of this session. Wow, what a wonderful and an illuminating discussion and presentation we had. And I'm sure this will create new pathways for all the audience who have attended this session. So thank you so much for that. I would again like to thank all our speakers, Ms. Diedrah Kelly, Mr. Adam Rice, Mr. Keith Cam, Jane Arp, and Elena D'Souza. I would also like to thank our partners who have supported us in this edition. That is our co-agenda partner, Lyra and Paypoint, our session partners, Feedzai and Bureau.id and RIICO. Along with that, I would like to also thank our gold partner, Jakarta, Pay10, Innovity, and Beans VC. So with that, we come to an end of this discussion. And it was a complete pleasure and an honor to have all of you all as our speakers at the Global FinTech Fest 2022. And this is Anchor Priya Shramankar signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Jan. That was great, buddy.
Good work, bud. See ya.
Get some sleep, man. Bye.